Bam.
This is Josh Appel, and you are watching the Break It Down show.
Oh, come on. Couple of badasses talking about badass stuff. I love it. I love having you on. Uh, you know, when you get into the world of special operations and you look around at the quality of people, you think, I'm never going to work with people this great again. But I have to imagine that in the world of like being an emergency room physician, it's got to be similar, where it's like just look, not everybody's going to be at the highest level all the time. But you have to look around and just think there's amazing people around me all the time.
Yeah, I like to surround myself with amazing people. It's different for sure. You know, there are certainly different standards in different professions. Some can get through a little easier on some things, um, but yeah, I'm always amazed at the people that I'm around.
Yeah.
Like really some dedicated, smart people that just get it done. So I don't know if that's by selection or what, but I'm pretty fortunate that I do get to surround myself with a bunch of people that know how to get it done.
There must be a self-selection aspect of working in the ER, though. You don't pick that, or I don't know, like the child cancer ward, if you're looking for a gentle experience. Like there's a different kind of person that has to want to be called to do that.
Yeah, I think there's certainly a selection, and there's a lot of overlap, I think, in the special operations fields and emergency medicine, right? Because you never know really what you're going to get, what's going to come through that door, and you kind of need to be prepared for just about anything and have multiple skill sets, not just a solid knowledge of cancer in children or whatever, but kind of a broad skill set that can be applied readily, that really needs to be honed and practiced often, much like special operations community, because you never know what that mission is going to be. Is that going to be a jump mission? Is it going to be a helo mission? Is it going to be a water rescue? Right. You got to have all of that stuff in your back pocket.
What if it was an ambush like this one here? What? Who are these guys? What's going on here?
Ambush for sure.
Then you got to be prepared to roll with it. What's up, fellas?
Josh, so good to see you, my friend.
Ditto.
Long time.
How are you?
Great.
This is just for the audience. These are some guys that Josh grew up with, and they reached out to me. They said, we really want to talk to Josh, and so would you set something up? And I thought, you know what, let's just do it live on the show, and let's just have a conversation, because I don't know, why the fuck not? Like, no, there is no this is your life kind of show anymore, and so there's nothing more planned than this, Josh. But if you'll play along with us, I thought I'd let the fellas and you guys just have a conversation, and I'm glad to jump in as needed. But I just think it's cool to have friends take the time to reach out and say, hey, could we do something like this? And how do I say no to that?
Well, I don't say no to it because I wasn't asked. I think you guys still owe me money.
It's possible. It's possible. So I told my wife, Heidi, that I was going to be on here. And I reminded her of the story when we came down for your graduation, Josh. And we celebrated really, really pretty hard, as we did when we were kids in high school and college. And this was back in the day, before cell phones and you could text. And we got so lit up that that I missed my flight. All of a sudden she called Josh from the Oakland airport.
Oh my
she
God.
drove there to pick me up. And I completely forgot about that story. And she said, oh, thanks for reminding me.
Nice. Yeah. That's so funny. Oh my gosh. So we haven't spoken, I don't know how many years. So
20 something years.
Yeah. It's like, where do you start?
I know.
It's been a lifetime. I don't even know where you are. Where are you guys?
I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona.
All right.
And I'm in, currently right now I'm sitting at Squaw Valley.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
What are you doing in Squaw Valley?
Working.
Tell them what you do.
What's that?
Tell them what you do. It's an interesting job.
Circle of death. Whatever you just said, I missed it. Sorry.
Oh, I said right now I'm working in lift maintenance, and then when the season starts, I switch over to lift operations, and I help coach the kids, the U14 and U13 team.
Nice. What, the ski teams or the which teams?
Ski team.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, after my vacation.
Great.
How are you? You know, when I watched the first one, you know, all I could think of is I still owe you for that stupid, what was it? The albino python trick in your bedroom when the thing
broke up on me. Sorry.
Right out of my hand.
Say it again.
I said, when I watched the podcast you did last year, I was sitting there and I was just thinking of all the things you always got me on that I owed you some payback for, like the albino python in your room, snatching the rat out of my hand. Also sitting in the front seat of your dad's car when we were going sailing, when I kept calling him Appel and you didn't say anything. So I figured, you know what? I owe him a couple surprises. Are you able to hear me?
I can't. It's broken up, so I'm getting like every third word.
So I'm hearing him okay. Are you hearing me okay?
I'm hearing you okay.
That's weird. I'm not sure why that is the case. Hey,
I'm
Pepe.
moving it a little closer.
No, I can hear you fine. And George, you can hear him okay too?
Yeah, I got it.
I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is.
Are you able to hear me now, Josh?
Yeah, no, I got you.
Okay. I moved it a little closer. I'm on my laptop, so I've been at work this morning, so I came out to do this. So he was
saying that he was getting you back a little bit for the what was it, the albino snake gag that you pulled on him?
Yeah, when he told me, here, feed the snake, just hold the rat in the opening of this, and the snake will slowly come over and take it. So I'm sitting there holding this thing, and all of a sudden, half the snake is outside of his cage, just lightning fast, scared the crap out of me.
Oh, yes.
The thing was like that big around, too. It was massive.
Yes.
It was a big snake, indeed.
Yes, it was.
That's funny. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. Max, I think, was the snake's name.
I so badly wanted to try to get a hold of one of the pictures of you. The one you had in your room where you were in the pose when you're back in the bodybuilding days, but
that's somebody else, I think. I don't know.
Yeah,
I see where this show is going, right? It's embarrass Josh as much as possible. Yeah.
Well, I mean, there is a little bit of that aspect, but it's also to celebrate the things you've done, my friend. Come on.
Awesome. No, that's fantastic. I don't recall ever having a picture of me in my room of bodybuilding. That's
it was in Pete's room.
No.
Back when I had hair. I know, right? Like,
well, you know, Jorge and I both have enough. I'll send you some.
So Josh has pretty much excelled at everything he's ever done. One of the stories I often tell about Josh is we'd go on this big camping trip, and Josh decides he's going to learn how to barefoot water ski. So how does Josh do it? He gets a book from the library. So we all pull up, we all set up tent. We're all, cracking beers and going on quick little runs and enjoying ourselves and having food. And then all of a sudden, Josh is just sitting there reading his book. And finally, after about a day, he shuts the book and comes out of the tent wearing a vest that he had gotten from a wedding from the ballet at a wedding we'd gone to about a month ago. And he's wearing this vest. He says, "Okay, I'm ready. Let's go." And so we go out in the water. At about his third attempt, this guy, who's a stud athlete, an amazing, determined individual, one of the most determined people I've ever met, starts barefoot water skiing. And he taught himself by just reading in a book and was coaching us how to drive the boat.
Yeah, basically it was go fast.
And for you, it was hang on.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and for me, it was hang on and pucker, because I don't know how much water I got up my butt that day, but it was a lot.
Oh
yeah, I don't know about athletic ability, but sheer tenacity, I think, is really what has gotten me through, because I was a determined son of a gun back then.
Big time.
And I would
Big
bite down on something and not let up. And I think barefoot water skiing was was a prime example of that. I don't know how
Were
I
you
got
born with that, or did you develop that?
the tenacity
Yeah,
or what?
yeah. That tenacity, that bite. Where did that come
Yeah. I think part of it's genetic. Part of it's, growing up being smaller and weaker than most, right? Like you just, I don't know if it was something that I had something to prove all the time or what, but
from?
right, like I was always small. I wrestled 114 pounds my senior year. I mean, I cut weight, but still 114 pounds. Like I got a 13-year-old daughter that's about that weight.
Yeah.
And so I knew, it wasn't going to be the athletic ability, but just the tenacity that got me through, and that stuck with me. And
There's something in that, though. I want to stick with this for a sec, if you guys don't mind me jumping in here. Like when I was growing up, we played a lot of pickup sports, and you don't grow up being like a stud or anything, so I'm this kid that's got glasses, and I'd taken this medicine. They gave it to me when I was a little kid, and it had stained my teeth, so they looked rotten when I was in this, in the 70s, and I hadn't gotten my adult teeth yet, so I'm as goofy looking as any kid was. But I wanted to play sports, and so it was hard for me to get on the field, to allowed to be on the field with other kids, so they wouldn't let me do it. And so what I learned is if I played hard and I, gave it as much as I got it, then I'd be all right. And some bigger kid would protect me because, hey, Pete's playing hard, even if I missed a catch or whatever, because not everybody's good, but as long as you did what you're supposed to do. And then one day, I got tired of getting just shoved around by this one kid, and so we were playing baseball, and I slid into second base hard, and he came up, and I knocked him down. He came up and he took a swing at me, and I just, before I knew it, I'd taken a swing back. It wasn't on purpose, but it wasn't not on purpose. I knew something like that would happen.
Reflexive.
But that kind of like set me free a little bit, and also got people off my back. They're like, "Oh shit, Pete will take a swing at you if you take a swing at him," And that wasn't in my nature, but it came from that willingness to get out there and play hard.
Yeah, it's adversity, right? Just the experience of adversity. And I think that's one of the things that kind of is lacking in our kids today, right? Like there's no adversity. Like I expose my kids to hard things because I want them to fail, right? They need to know what it's like to fail and to have things be tough and not work out the way they're supposed to or they want it to, right? Like I have a story that, when I didn't get into medical school, it was devastating. And from that I learned, and I say it's the best thing that ever happened to me, not getting in the first time, because then I stumbled across pararescue and I had this whole 10 years of experience that I would have never gotten had I gotten in. But from that adversity, right, is picking yourself up and driving on. And really that, like, my girls are probably sick of hearing it, but like anytime something bad happens, I'm like, good, right? What are you going to learn from that?
Yeah.
Like
my
daughter.
Best example I can think of about that, Josh, is probably your story of bobbing apples.
Of what?
The bobbing apples when you were in
PJ selection or what?
Yep.
Yeah. Right.
That and with the fractured leg.
Yeah. I did end up running a 6-mile eval on a broken leg, but it was the last event to get through PJ selection, and it really wasn't anything other than laziness because I didn't want to have to do the whole selection over again. So I put my crutches down. I was like, all right, well, I'm going to run until it snaps. And luckily it didn't snap and set me back a while, but I didn't have to go through the whole thing again. Like literally it was the last day of selection. I wasn't gonna have to do that again.
That doesn't make sense in the common world. I knew you were going to say that because you do reach a point where you're like, all I have to do is this 25-mile, ruck march.
Yeah.
My feet are all ripped raw and everything else, but like I've already, you get a level of pain. You're like, I can take this, and if it gets worse, then we'll assess that later. And so, sure, my ankle is broke, but here we go.
Yeah, right. I remember the doctor telling me, he's like, no, you need to be off this for 4 to 6 weeks. I'm like, all right, I'll be off it next week. I have an eval on there.
Run.
Like, after my 6-mile run, I'll rest all I can.
Just got to knock this out real quick.
What do you guys think about that? When you hear Josh talk about that, does that sound foreign to you guys at all?
No, not surprised.
No.
I don't even know. Josh, did you ever even dive before you went out for the ASU team? Like in high school?
Yeah. I dove in high school, and then at DVC, I dove for a bit.
That's right.
And that is a great example of mediocrity, of like just average. Like, I was a decent diver, but like middle of the pack, like at Pac 10s, I think I was exactly middle. So,
but then you went from that to diving on fire, correct?
Yeah, that was a summer job. I don't know if I've ever talked about this on a podcast, but yeah, I was a professional high diver for a German amusement park for a summer. That was my summer vacation. I went off to Germany after my eligibility at ASU was up. I was approached by a guy that put on diving shows across the world, and he asked me if I'd be interested in doing a dive show, mostly clown diving. And I was like, yeah, clearly you've been watching me dive if you want me to do clown dives. But then I got there, and there was a guy, he was the fire diver. And so he would like literally light himself on fire and dive into the little tank. And then there was the high diver, the 90-foot high dive off the little platform into this like 10-foot tank of water. And I thought, that is insane. I was like, there's no way I could ever do that. And then after like the third day, I was like, I wonder if I could do that. And then by the second week I was doing it. But it was, and I use that metaphor a lot in life, because like I looked at this high, right? This is a 90-foot ladder on suspension wires with this like 1 foot by 1 foot platform that you stand on and you dive off of. And I thought, there's no way I could ever do that. But then in between shows, I would take the platform, the 30-foot platform, and then I'd move it to the 40-foot platform, and then I'd move it to the 50-foot platform. And slowly but surely, I'd work my way up until I was at like 60, I think. And then the boss of the show was like, hey, Josh, you should do the high dive in the show, because then you'll have to do it, right? And he said, it's the same dive from 60 feet as it is at 90 feet. You just hold a little bit longer. I was like, that's a great idea. Let me do it for the first time in front of 1,000 people. And so they play like the theme of Rocky as you're climbing up the ladder, and then you stand at 60 feet and you stop and you wave, and then the music takes a dramatic turn and you climb up the rest of the way. And I remember thinking, holy shit, this is high. And I'm climbing and I stand up and I turn around and I look down and I was like, what have I got myself into? Like, the difference between 60 and 90 feet was huge. And the pool looked like a thimble, I'm like, I could clearly jump past this thing. And then literally I'm thinking through my head, I'm like, what would they do if I just climbed down off of this, and then they announced me, right? The American high diver, Josh Appel. And I'm like, So I took a couple of deep breaths and then took a couple of more, and then I counted to 3 and then counted to 3 again. And then finally I went, and I was just like, holy crap. It seemed like so long before I hit that water. And and then I realized, right? I was like, this is a metaphor for life. Like, I can do anything. Like, if it looks like it's unattainable, it's an unreachable goal, right? Just take it step by step. And I also often say, you know, rung by rung, because I picture that ladder. And that was really the impetus of me going to medical school, because I never really thought I could be a doctor, because I never thought I was smart enough or good enough or had the ability to study or whatever. And I'm like, we'll just take it rung by rung, right? Like, I'll start banging out my prereqs, and then I'll take the MCAT, and then I'll not get in, and then I'll join the military, and then I'll do some stuff, and then I'll get in. So the ladder was higher for me, but ultimately it worked out. But yeah, was a pivotal point in my life, was doing that high dive, just because it was such a huge obstacle that I thought was impossible.
How legitimately dangerous is that dive for someone with your quals and everything else, and having worked up to 60 feet?
Yeah. With my quals, it's even more dangerous. I'm not very good. But it's legit. It's dangerous. I wouldn't recommend it. There was actually somebody in another show at the time that actually died doing a similar dive. They landed on their back, and the water at that speed, right? Because you reach terminal velocity, and so you're going maybe 100 miles an hour when you hit that water, and the surface tension of the water is like hitting concrete. So you have to land on your feet, right? There's no way you can land on your go head first. But this guy, I forgot what he did, but he landed on his back, and he got up and he got out, and he waved, and then he walked backstage and died. He had the impact tore his aorta. Oof. And right. So there's nothing you can do about that. Even if you got a CT surgeon on, right there, right? Like, that's a fatal injury every time.
And from being qualified to do things like that as a professional rescuer, you only get to go so high and reliably jump out of things. Like, you wouldn't ever say, hey, 90 feet, well, no problem, let's go. Like, that's well above that limit. People don't know how to jump out. It's just crazy.
Like water work with in helicopters, like you try and go 10 knots and 10 feet, right? But if you're in swells or stuff, you can get to 30 feet, but no way do you do anything like at 90 feet, especially with all your gear on and stuff. There's just so much room for error that they try and get you as close.
And I'm going to get out of your guys' way in a second here, but I got to ask this. How much is that ladder moving at the top? And then 90 feet of ladder climb in one pole. That is also not a gentle thing. That's vertical. 90 feet. That's hard.
Yeah. And then, just standing up there, with the wind, it's got suspension lines that are holding this thing, but it's just a ladder going straight up. And there were flags at the top. And so when I would raise up my arms, right, the flags would like hit my hands, and it was nerve-wracking. The top of the ladder, like the last 5 feet of it, was not suspension wired in, and so you'd hold it, and it would like wiggle and like kind of freak out. Yeah, as soon as I got up there, I was like, I got to get off of this thing. It's terrifying.
My palms are sweating.
I remember the video, but I don't remember seeing any of the waving. I think the video, you must have edited it to where it was just like they lit you on fire, you put your arms up, and then you went.
Yeah. I don't remember if I waved. We had a special wave where you had to like, hi everybody, and you had to go all the way across, make sure you wave to everybody.
That's great.
And what I had told Pete too is that I'm sure a lot of the guys that you know now and you've spent the last few years with, they may have not seen the prankster side of you and the comedian side of you.
They have,
And
they have for sure.
Well, and I told him, I said, I remembered the one thing that stood up in my mind when you came back for the reunion in 05 is that you were a lot different, a lot quieter. And it was a pretty obvious, and I respect that because what you probably saw now, my experience the last 7 of the last 9 years was a little bit different, but it was definitely, you see a lot of things you don't want to see.
Yeah, that was a weird time for me. Like, when was that? Like
05.
Yeah, when in 05 was that?
I think it was July, Hush.
Yeah, it was a weird time for me for sure. But yeah, I have since recovered, and yeah, it was a quiet time for me, which is hard because I'm not usually quiet. But yeah, most people know my mastery of smartassery. I'm still a bit of a prankster, and it gets it.
Apparently,
I've learned to channel it a little bit. It certainly got me in trouble going through PJ school and brought me some extra attention that I probably didn't need. But
oh wow,
my gosh, yeah. When I first met my father-in-law, he asked, "Did you get beat up a lot when you were a kid? Because you're a smart ass." I was like, probably not as much as I deserved, because I could talk my way out of most things. Like,
yeah.
Oh, yeah. I've got a few pranks that I've pulled that have been pretty epic over the years.
And now you have children, and nothing, don't take this the wrong way, but having a daughter and a son and now a granddaughter, boy, the girls, that's a good payback for you.
I've got 3 girls. I know, right? Somebody. But then I think about the high dives and the PJ stuff, and I'm thinking that maybe it was gene selective that I only got girls, because trying to promote the gene pool, because a son, if I had a son, I don't know. My girls are tough, right? And they're pretty badass. They've certainly learned to hang with dad. I'm no longer the fastest in the family. They're running faster than I am. I've got a 13-year-old and 2 11-year-olds.
Mm.
And this year the twins started beating me in the mile and the 100 and everything. And I was like,
okay, everything. Yeah.
Right.
In the run.
Yeah. And I think I'm still faster than swimming. And I definitely can still tap them out in jiu-jitsu. So when that day comes, when they start tapping me out, then I say it's coming, and it will be one of the proudest and most humbling days of my lives.
What years did you go to DVC?
86, 87.
All right. Me too. I was 87. 87 I was there. And did you guys up above me, did you guys go to DVC as well?
Yes.
Yes.
What? All of us?
Yeah.
Oh wow, look at that. How crazy is that?
That's where I met my wife.
Oh, nice. Yeah. And of course we all know that Mark Harmon wore a DVC shirt in summer school. We all know that, right? That's super fun.
That's fun.
Well, you went ASU in what, 87, right? Because I was in Northridge at 87.
Yep.
And we used to go back and forth.
Yep.
So
yeah.
I can't tell those stories though. Not on a
podcast. I played soccer on the AstroTurf there, and I had never played on a turf field before. And I didn't mind diving because my game was all hustle, right? Not game. There was no game. It was all like I'm going to work hard.
Yeah,
And then I
right.
realized there's a grain to the AstroTurf, and if you
Yeah.
didn't go with it, it was terrible to go with it. But if you went against it, it would cheese grate your skin off of your
Hmm.
body. And if you
Oh.
dove face first, you did that one time, and that was it. You never did that again.
Self-critiquing, yeah.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
and I also played softball on that field, for PE. I did a lot of PE, and so it's just funny that we have a similar time frame for DVC. DVC is at Diablo Valley College, everybody, if you're watching on the show side. So, yeah,
How
same time
did
frame.
how did you three hook up? Like,
It's this guy's fault right here.
Pepe.
Well, somebody sent me the podcast. And they said, "Hey, I think you know him, right?" And I looked at the title and I said, "Oh yeah, hell yeah, that's Hosh." And then I kind of forgot about it for a little while. I was in Concord a month ago, and I was driving down Cowell Road, and I went, "You know what? I'm gonna watch that thing." So then I watched it, and I reached out to Pete. I just sent him an email, and I said, "Hey, you know what? I've known Josh a long time, haven't talked to him in a long time. If you have him on again, I would love to jump in for 10 or 15 minutes just to pay him back one of the 100 things I owe him for."
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
great.
Yeah. Well, and it was, and again, Josh, I mean, I've always, you've always played things real tight to the chest, so, but you've always, like you guys were talking earlier, the tenacity is just, that was always the thing I always had in my mind when it came to you is
Frozen again. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think every time you try and pay me a compliment, you freeze. I think maybe that's what happens. Every time you try to say something nice, there's an edit button
Yeah.
or a filter.
I'm in control of all of that. I don't want to. Not really.
Yeah,
It's
right.
funny because he's not freezing on our end, but either way,
Yeah.
I'll bring George over. Hey, George. That tenacity. Any examples of that from the youth, the time when you guys were young? You were nodding your head.
Yeah, always. I mean, well, I thought he was going to drown back there when he was trying to barefoot water ski. He drank so much water, but he figured it out.
Yeah.
I knew you would. And as he said, he was, he wasn't the biggest guy, but when people would try to mess with him, I mean, he put up a hell of a fight.
Yeah.
Along with talking his way out of it. So people were like, get discouraged, because this guy, not only he's gonna crack you up because he's not going to shut up the whole time, but he's never going to quit.
Right.
And I remember when he when the med school thing didn't work out at first, I just knew he'd find a way. And then, he goes into the Air Force and PJ thing and does amazing at that. So yeah, he's always had it.
And I always framed it whenever I got myself in trouble and somebody was about to kick my ass. I'm like, look, this is a no-win situation for you, right? Because either you beat my ass, and so great, you beat up this little guy and you look like a jerk, or you get your ass kicked by this little guy and you look like a jerk. So
all you got to do is
it's a no-win situation for you.
Yeah, get him thinking. That's a good call.
How many times I pulled that argument?
Hey, Josh, what are the things when you're in that line of work, and I'll put myself in there too because I've worked in and amongst the teams and that kind of community, and as a spy, we have our own little special world, but people don't understand that when you're out there in that world, it's all alphas, and the alphas are sorting amongst the alphas, and there's no lower tier, and so you are competing, and maybe you aren't the best shot, but you're a damn good shot. Maybe you aren't the fastest swimmer, but you know what? Go to the pool and you're going to be so when you're doing that, how does that hit your competitive nature? Because you can't be the best of the best at everything, right? Like you can do jujitsu. You're like, I'm going to be good enough at this, but I cannot be the best because that guy's got a 10-year head start on me, right? So how do you deal with that when you are tenacious, when you are an alpha, when you are a guy that's going to outwork a problem, when you are going to run with a broken ankle, right? But everybody there has done that, right?
Yeah.
That's just like, that's the entry criteria. So what do you do about that? Yeah.
I think that all just settles out. Like everybody has kind of their expertise and everybody's kind of a subject matter expert in something, it's not, um, it's not like I think people would think it is, where it's this big pissing contest, you know. It's just a mutual respect. And I think everybody realized that everybody has their strengths and their weaknesses. And then we rely on those people when that skill set is needed. Right. Like you said, everybody's got a baseline fitness, everybody's got a baseline competence. But there are certain things that people excel at. And then I think we just default to that. And it's not everybody trying to, you know, maneuver for rank on everything. Yeah, there's some of that, and some of that happens when it's a new group, but it settles out pretty quickly. You know, we were on a training exercise in New Hampshire. We were doing a medical course, and there was some SEALs there and a bunch of PJs, and there's always this competition, you know, competitive rivalry and stuff. And we went up Mount Washington, which is got some of the highest winds and lowest temperatures recorded in the country. And, you know, they kept talking about, you know, you got to make sure that you manage your sweat. Like, you don't want to sweat, because then when you stop, then you get cold, and then that's how people freeze to death. And so, you know, take it slow and methodical, and manage your water and your sweat. And so we start off, and then, you know, the SEALs will kind of like get out ahead of us a little bit, and then we'd pick it up a little bit. And then by the end, you know, me and another PJ are like running up this mountain so we can get to the top. And by the time we get there, you know, everybody's just soaked in sweat and drenched. And I think that was like a prime example of how that competitiveness was actually detrimental, right? Looking back on it put, you know, put us in danger. You know, I knew I had clean, you know, dry clothes. I got out of my clothes, I dried off and stuff, but we weren't about to let those SEALs beat us up Mount Washington.
Right.
And they didn't.
Yeah. We were on
that story, the ice climbing story.
And right.
That one, and Pete, you know, the other thing, that's why earlier, I know we kind of went over it pretty quick, was the whole bodybuilding thing and lifting weights. We got into it. I know Hosh and I got into it at the same time with another friend of ours who was really getting into it. And the next thing, there was a couple more that got into it. And somewhere along the way, Josh just kind of floated off to the side a little bit, but he wasn't at a parallel path. What he did is he floated off to the side, and then he accelerated towards his goal. And I didn't realize that until later. And there's a couple things I can't say on a podcast, so I'm not going to talk about those. But
thank you.
I'm sure he knows.
Whatever that is, thank you.
Yeah, exactly. But the point is that either we were going too slow for him, or at least I was, because I did it, but I never, you know, got down to a low body fat or anything like that. And I did it for a few years. And that's why I brought up that picture, because it really showed it. The first time I never saw that picture. I considered myself one of his closest friends. Yeah. And the first time I ever saw or heard anything about that picture was inside of his house. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Because he was. I mean, he's this guy of smaller stature, but he was ripped. And I just looked at that and went, yeah, no, I never even got close to that. I mean, I was bigger, but I certainly was not disciplined enough to not eat and, you know, have very little body fat.
Yeah. I want to go back to that
all compensation for just being short.
Yeah, I want to go back to that competition part, because we were on a patrol, going to patrol in Afghanistan, right? And we had to move a platoon-sized element. It's like 30 people, everybody. And so we were climbing up just a series of boulders. This isn't technical, but it's at a very high altitude. It's a lot of people, and you're going up a mountain. So you're exposed if someone chose to ambush us. I don't know where they would ambush us from, but either way, you're on a combat patrol. You get to the top of the mountain, you got to go down the mountain. So there's a certain level of fitness you need to have, but also you need to have readiness whenever you get there. And so it took us probably the better part of an hour to go up this drop to gain a lot of elevation in a short amount of time. If you're young and you're fit, you're like, come on, old people, let's go. But the commander knew, I knew, a lot of us who've been leaders were like, this is a slow, methodic thing. You can't have someone roll an ankle, because that kills the mission. You can't have someone break an ankle, which easily could have happened. but also if something does happen and you don't know where the ambush is going to be, you can't all be in oxygen debt. So you're like, hang on, don't fight us yet,
Yeah,
because
right.
it's just like we're 12,000 feet up, right? And so that understanding, when to be slow, when to be deliberate, and when it's not a competition. Like there's no prize for being first. There's no ego in this. This is about a mission, and getting up this hill had to happen no matter what. So let's make sure we still had another. That was the beginning of our mission. We still had another 7 hours to go that day, and we were at our heaviest. We had all of our water, we had all of our food, and so that whole thing you're talking about, and understanding that it's not time to be the fittest and strongest, it's time to be smart. Man, that is a tough lesson when you're young to learn that.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah, for
glad you
sure.
pointed that out.
Right. I'm always amazed, I'm a fan of history, and I like reading about historic battles, and like when Washington crossed the Delaware, like those guys, before they even engaged in the enemy, went all night through the snow, through the water, right? Some of them didn't have shoes on, right? Like you'd be done by the time you got anywhere, but then they fought, right? Like any of those battles where they just had to move over such long distances, just I'm like, I don't know if we have it anymore. It concerns me that we've lost some mettle in our generations, and I don't like the World War II guys were just badass. Like, yeah, I've done some things, you've done some things, but I don't think any of it really compares to the stuff that they went through. It's humbling for sure. As soon as you start thinking you're cool, let's just read back to what a generation or two has done, and it really puts you in your place.
Well, I'm very thankful for what both of you have done and how you've served our country. So thank you, guys.
My battery is flashing at me. Hosh, do you still have your old Hotmail address?
Yeah. One bad apple.
Yep. Yep. All right. If you're okay with that, I'm going to reach out to you. I'd love to talk to you offline.
Yeah, that'd be great. You tell me all those stories you couldn't say on podcast.
Well, yeah. I think you remember a lot of them too.
That's funny.
All right, guys. My battery's about to die on me.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to run too. Thank you. Josh, great to see you. I
Awesome.
can't wait to connect with you.
Great seeing you guys.
And stuff. Your family and all that. Catch up.
Yes, I would love to hear about
for sure.
them.
I'm
Awesome.
just
yeah, they're way cool. They're way cooler than I am. So I'd love to talk about them.
All right.
All right, guys.
Thanks, Pete.
Bye.
Thank you.
Well, that was fun, Pete. Thanks for doing that. That was pretty cool. I have not seen those guys in at least 20 years. So it's funny that that they reached out and we have that connection. All right. I lost your audio for some reason. I don't got you. I'm not hearing you. Can you? I got nothing.
My laptop.
Yep. There you go.
My for me, and it kept fixing the wrong way. Yeah, I appreciate you doing that. That was.
I lost you again, but I didn't have a choice, right? Total ambush. It's funny.
I don't know why my laptop is letting me talk right. So I'm gonna turn my microphone. I'm gonna kill the show. But thanks for
technology is failing us. can't hear you.
Hey, thanks for watching the show. I really appreciate it. Right here, you can subscribe. Please do that. It makes the show grow. Hit that notification bell so you know which incredible guest is coming up next. Down below is the PayPal link. You can put a small subscription in. That is an enormous help. All that money goes right back into the show. And then right up over here are the next episodes you should listen to, curated by yours truly.